amazing wife.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Jimenez Ryan.
Yes, another episode of the Tim and Jen Show. And I want to let people know, first and foremost, out of the gate, if you want to watch our show, you can go to your app store on either device, on Androids or on iPhones, and download the Lux TV app, Luxe TV app. And it's right there, Lux Media app. You can also get us on Spotify, on iTunes, and all the other platforms out there.
I was just checking to make sure that you spelled it right. Sorry. For some reason, sometimes I'm like, wait, did we do it wrong? Yeah.
So what else going on?
So it's okay. So a couple things are going on. It's winter. It's snowing in California, which is amazing.
Snowing and
Southern
rain
California.
and cold. We
yes.
went from 88 degrees to 50 and yucky.
Yeah. And then we got the vaccine last week. And it's so funny. Somebody on Twitter who's like really active on there and has, 500,000
He's
followers.
a doctor. He's a
doctor.
Harvard doctor.
He's the first doctor to talk about, all this COVID stuff last year. And he was like, post that you're taking, video it or take a photo of you getting your vaccine. So he did. And then all of a sudden this crazy backlash happened. And it was funny. And then for me, I thought it was funny because people were like, how dare you get in the front of the line? First of all, it's been out there for a while. Second of all, we didn't get in front of any line. Third of all, we're
frontline workers. We're in and out of treatment centers, detoxes, sober homes.
People's
homes. We do interventions. We are frontline workers. But people today still, I think with politics and COVID, they either love you or they hate you, and they just want something to talk about.
But what people don't understand is that when you are talking good or bad, it's still good for us. So thank you.
Yeah, talk away, do what you want.
Right away, do whatever you want to do on that. And I want to kind of talk about earlier in the beginning of the year, I had talked about that I started this fast. It's called the Daniel fast. And basically I say I'm eating dirt, mud, and grass, but I'm not. I'm eating like brown rice here and there and vegetables and fruit. And I gave up everything else. And I'm on day 16 and it's been an interesting experience. I go through lows and highs, and it's all through prayer and meditation as well. I wanted to kind of get a stronger connection with my God of my understanding and have more of a spiritual experience. And in the times of when I'm making you bacon, because you're doing a carnivore.
I'm doing the carnivore diet.
And I'm making you steak and I want to like sneak it and take a bite. I don't, and I'm really proud of myself.
I give you credit. It's not easy because I look at the bowl of rice you eat every day, and but the meat, it's sometimes I get frustrated, but I've lost 8 pounds in 10, 11 days.
Yeah,
and
I'm
working out at the gym 2-3 times a week at a private gym with a private trainer. So nobody else is there and it's all COVID safe. But, I want to better myself. I'm 52 years old. I want to be around.
Yeah. And speaking of bettering ourselves, today we have a really special guest, somebody who I just love and adore. And we have worked together on Celebrity Rehab and Sober House, and she is just a warrior.
Yeah, she is. I'm not going to say her name yet. She's an LCSW. She's a licensed psychotherapist, life coach, helps people cope with codependency, addiction, trauma, mental health issues, holds a master's degree from the University of Southern California. And as you said, has been on all these, celebrity, VH1 Celebrity Rehab, CNN, Inside Edition, The Rob Irvine Show, LA Times, Thrive Global, Cosmopolitan.
She's written a bunch of books. And she's somebody that people like us in recovery need. She's also somebody that, I just think the world needs more of this woman. And it's my honor to introduce Sherry Gaba.
Hi, Sherry.
Hi, Tim and Jen. Well, I love you guys. I'm honored you've invited me, and I have known both of you a while. Jen, probably a little longer. I was listening to what you were saying about the vaccine, and I have to go, woohoo, I got my vaccine today.
All right.
And I had some naysayers too, like, oh, what do you mean you're a healthcare provider? And just like you, I sometimes go into rehabs and do groups, and I have a private practice, and we are exposed, and we don't want to give it to other people, and we need to be able to be safe. So I'm really excited. But when you said, these people were giving you a hard time, I was thinking about what I went through with Celebrity Rehab, and maybe you can relate, Jen. I got a lot of people like, how can you be a therapist on there? It's supposed to be an anonymous program. And I just say, bring it on, because I'm never ashamed of any decision I make to do anything in the public. And just like you did Celebrity Rehab, I think it was one of the greatest awakenings of what rehab was all about. I think that's what that show conveyed. And so I think it helped a lot of people, and we helped a lot of people in, some of the guests and some of the, not the guests, excuse me, some of the clients and patients. And, I'm not ashamed. So I'm not ashamed about my vaccine either.
I love that you talk about that, because there have been times, I think that, like, I've talked to Tim, like, people wish me death, on that, after doing that show. And it was like, for me, I was like, okay, it's somebody who's out there actively in addiction, or just it related too close to them that they felt this. This is so not about me. Whatever people write about or feel in that anger, like no one knows me, but they know the 43 minutes of what they saw on those shows. And we were the first of that movement, and addiction lives in every home, and so does codependency. I mean, I've never walked into a house or known of anyone that's like, we're codependent free here. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's amazing.
But these are things that people weren't talking about. And Jennifer and I have recently watched some of the old Sober House episodes and Celebrity Rehab and things. And you guys were the first. What people don't understand, she still gets messages today from people saying, hey, I saw you on that show. You're the reason I got sober. And people still reach out for help today from that.
Or they want to go to the sober house that I run, it wasn't my house.
The crazy thing is, though, the backlash, and I received it when I had my documentary on A&E, and I wrote a book and all this. And, well, you don't have any clinical degree. And no, I hold 2 PhDs. I have one in pain and cardiology, and I lived in addiction for 30 years, and I got sober in a prison cell with the big book and blah, blah, blah. But I've lived it. No, I'm not a clinician, but I know when to turn to people like you that have the letters behind their names, and can actually give people the help they need.
But she doesn't just have letters behind her name. I know Sherry on as well as you do on a deeper level. And Sherry, why don't you just tell us a little bit about your story?
Sure. Okay. So one of the reasons I'm doing this today on a sort of a recovery addiction podcast, although I know you're probably talking about all kinds of mental health topics, is because I believe codependency lives underneath most addicts and alcoholics. And if I could, I would love to share part of my story. It's not my whole story. I was married to an alcoholic addict who I loved very much. But what took him out, and he doesn't mind me sharing it, so it's not really like I'm breaking any kind of anonymity, so I want to be honest about that, is that codependency is what took him out. He worked in the entertainment business, he was a costumer, and he was working crazy hours. And the codependent piece was that he couldn't say no. Jen, you were in the entertainment business, and when you work in entertainment, you have to be game on, and you have to say yes, and you have to you can't say no because you're so afraid that someone else is going to take your job. And yet, here he is, a guy in his late 50s working like, a 25-year-old, and he actually got on a scaffold and fell down. He tore his rotator cuff, and being the addict that he is, he didn't say that he was an addict, and they put him on painkillers. And then eventually his alcoholism, he turned to his drug of choice, which was alcohol. And unfortunately, after many, many stints in rehabs, me trying to support him and loving him, and as I talk about, enable him, control him, try to fix him, eventually we had to get divorced because I was getting as sick as he was. So that's my codependency story. But I do want people to know that if you're in recovery, be mindful of your codependency. And as we go through the interview, you'll understand what it is. It can happen to anybody, and it is what took him out. And unfortunately, he's in and out of rehab ever since. He's a 65-year-old man, and it's really sad.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Ladies first.
Oh, thank you. It's interesting because as I feel that as I got sober and stayed sober, I realized how bad codependency, like how codependent I was. And then a few years ago, codependency slapped me so hard in the face, and it hurt just as bad as getting sober, like realizing I needed to get sober hurt.
Yeah. And one of the things you said was learn to say no. And I was in a horrific relationship, and I stayed together because of our daughter. And when Jenn came into my life and we fell in love, the one thing she taught me was, Tim, it's okay to say no, and quit enabling everyone else, and whether it's your kids or this. And that was hard for me to do because I was a yes man, and I want to save everyone and keep everyone happy. And my mind and foundation has shifted so much in the past 6-7 years. It's unbelievable.
I mean, good for, I gotta give you a compliment though, babe. Like you weren't like 9-10 years sober and then realized codependency hit you, you know, in the face. So thank God, like you got it earlier, and you know, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. Would you consider yourself a codependent?
Are you asking me, or you're asking
you?
Oh, me. Yes, I am a codependent and love addict in recovery, 100%. You know, my addiction is you. Your addiction might be drugs or alcohol. My addiction is you. I'm going to save you. I'm going to try to change you. I'm going to enable you. I'm going to control you. And I'm going to try to fix you because I want you to be what I want you to be. I want what I want. I think all addiction underneath, whether it's codependency, love, drugs, food, sex, getting, food addiction, underneath all of it is this chronic emptiness, this need to belong, this need to fill that empty hole. What I would say to the two of you, Jenn and Tim, is that I would imagine for you both, probably, I'm not positive, you came from some kind of trauma. Yep. And so, okay, so underneath trauma is usually this feeling of being invisible, feeling like you weren't heard. Maybe you had parents that were emotionally unavailable, physically unavailable. God forbid you were molested or abused or neglected. And so you learn at a very young age to become very other focused. So for some people, their drug of choice is, you know, drugs and alcohol. Others, it's codependency, love addiction. And again, like I said earlier, other process addictions, lifestyle addictions, such as debting, food, and so forth. I often share my story. I shared my ex-husband's story, which is part of my story. I share my story because it usually will help one person out there. I was a preemie. I was in an incubator for the first 2.5 months of my life. I'm probably a decade older than the two of you. I'm not sure how old you are, Jenn, but Tim disclosed his age. And in those days, you know, if you had a preemie baby, I was only 3 pounds. I was, you know, fed through my feet. And I know this is like, what does this have to do with codependency? But it has a lot to do with codependency because this was my early trauma. I was in an incubator, didn't meet my mother for 2.5 months, didn't have any of that early bonding, didn't have any of that connection. And so I was born looking outside myself to find what I was needing on the inside. And that was love and connection. And, you know, we all know the opposite of addiction is connection. And I didn't get that. So when I was growing up, I always felt really different. And I'm sure the two of you can relate to this. I always felt like I didn't fit in. I felt like I was outside looking in and I needed to be connected. I was so hungry and I was craving so badly for someone to love me and notice me and give me attention and validate me. So, you know, picking an alcoholic was like perfect. Like, you're going to need me and you're not going to leave me because you need me. And this was like the perfect dance, right? The alcoholic and the codependent. So that's my story of early trauma. And I share it because there might be someone out there that can relate who was like, wow, I was a preemie baby. I didn't know that was part of my issue. But when I learned that that was what was the source of all of my issues of emptiness and not belonging and feeling, you know, needing love and needing connection, it was really, you know, life altering.
It's interesting you say that because 1.5 years, maybe 2 years out of prison, I went to an event in Chicago and saw Dr. Gaba speak. And I'm like, yes. I don't have any trauma. But then he said, you know, if you're adopted, you're 48,000 times more susceptible to being an alcoholic and drug addict, and the learning disabilities, and the brother that bullied me and beat me up, and the molestation. Oh, boom, there's my trauma. My solution became drugs and alcohol. But it's really ironic being in this treatment world, in this recovery space. How many of the treatment centers out there that only work with substance abuse or alcoholism? They say they're dual diagnosis. They really don't work with the mental health, and a majority do not touch the trauma. And if you're not working with all three, you're dead in the water.
Yeah, well, one of the ideas is that, let's just get sober first and then we'll deal with the other stuff, which, makes some sense. But I think eventually we got to touch on the trauma. And then from, that first 28 days, then we got to move into the trauma piece, because without dealing with the trauma, which my ex was never willing to do, you're just going to keep relapsing. You're just going to keep relapsing because you're never going to be able to regulate your nervous system. And that is what trauma is. Trauma is not being able to stay grounded in your core, to be able to regulate your nervous system, in layman's term, being comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah, no, I know. And, where I went to treatment, I had so many doctors, psychiatrists, psychoanalysts, all therapists. I had the whole thing, right? But I was so sedated. And I just remember I felt like after a year of being sober, I came out of a coma. That's what it felt like. But my therapist, I continued to see, like, I went every single day while I saw him when I was in treatment for 9 months. And then I went to like 3 times a week, then 2, then once, and once every 2 weeks. And for 2.5 years, he would say to me, are you going to say it today? And I'd say what? And he'd be like, you know what you need to say. He wanted me to say, I, Jennifer, hate my mom and my father, my dad, right? And I'd be like, no, but and I had every excuse in the world, because I love them and they did the best they could. But I had every reason. Finally, I walk in 2.5 years sober. I look at him and he kind of gave me that smirk. And I looked at him and I went, I, Jennifer, hate my mother and hate my father. And I cried for the whole hour. And at the end, he looked at me and kind of smirked and he went, now we can dive into your recovery. Welcome. Yeah. And I just went, oh my God, because as much as I love, I also had a lot of hurt, but I needed to deal with that pain. And a lot of addicts and alcoholics they don't want to deal with whatever pain
they want to run from it. Well,
they have.
That's why they're eating or sexual or whatever the addiction piece is. That's why they're caught in the addiction, because nobody wants to deal with trauma. Nobody wants to deal with pain. And me at 52 years old, son of a bitch, Jenn got me into therapy and my life has changed drastically. If I could go back in that magical mystifying glass to 1990, January, when I was 21 years old, checking myself into treatment the first time and actually had the opportunity to work with all these tools, they weren't offered back then. Don't drink, go to meetings.
Yeah, but.
Oh, exactly. Well, I love what you said earlier about Gabor Mate. He's great. And, I actually interviewed him for Recovery Magazine, and he is just incredible. And he is one of the, not one of the only, but he is one of the trailblazers in the addiction trauma piece. He had his own trauma. I don't know if he shared, his story. His mother was a Holocaust survivor. He was a baby, and talk about not getting that, she was probably just she was trying to survive. So she's in fight or flight, and then he's in fight or flight with this fight or flight unavailable mother. And so he has his own addiction, which I think is to CDs or classical music CDs or whatever. I mean, something crazy like that, but he gets trauma. He understands the trauma piece.
I feel like there's not a person that doesn't have an ism. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like we're at one point or another, we're all in something, whether it be like, oh, I got to lose weight, or, oh, I got to eat less, or I got to eat better, or I got to get a spiritual connection. I got to have that bag. I think it's really important, though, that we talk about signs. If you could give us, please.
Signs. What are signs and symptoms?
Yeah,
that's great.
Oh, great. Okay. I love that. So first, I want to say Melody Beatty, who is the founder, well, not the founder, she is the one that coined the term codependency way back when. She had the book Codependent No More, and she actually endorsed my book Love Smack. So I am very honored, and I can call her a friend and a colleague. She's a wonderful person. She's the one that actually started this whole movement, but now it's expanded. In the old days, it was about, oh, you're enabling your partner. You're going to call the boss the next day and say, oh, my husband is sick. He can't come in today. But it's expanded. It's expanded to be more about a loss of self. So when I talked earlier about trauma and growing up with unavailable parents, abusive parents, it's that early piece where you didn't get what you needed, so you became very invisible. And then you never really knew who you were. You never developed a sense of self. So I'm going to go through, and you guys can tell me when to stop, because there's many, many signs and symptoms, and I don't want to bore people, but one of these might hit on someone, so.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. So, cause there's a lot of them. So definitely definitely interrupt me, and I'm fine with that. So one of them is, do you find it easier to keep commitments to others, but you break commitments that for yourself? So in other words, other people come first, you come last. And then also interrupt me if you want to talk about it. Do you stay in painful relationships? Do you have a desire to constantly people please? Do you worry to the point of obsession? Do you think that it's your responsibility to fix everything for everybody? Are you always apologizing for yourself and for other people? Is all your mental attention focused on another? Do you put aside your own interests and hobbies so you can spend time sharing another person's hobbies and interests? Are you not in touch with how you feel, but more in touch with how someone else feels?
Wait, can we talk about that one really quick, about how you feel over, because I tend to do that. Like, I'd rather have you happy and my mom happy, my brother happy, and everyone around me happy. And it's something I've been working on, and I'm very in therapy, thank God, for it. But it's something, the people pleasing part aspect of it. And what is that really? Is it because I feel people feel smaller, they don't feel enough? I mean,
or do you feel that you're in control?
If you grew up with trauma, and if you want to share it, fine. If not,
and we did on Recovery Today magazine, when you interviewed me, we talked about some of my trauma. So okay. I'm very open about my trauma.
Okay, so whatever that was, and it's been a while, so excuse me, Jen, I should have.
Lots of faces you've interviewed.
Yeah, I'm sorry. But whatever it was, you somehow, became other focused after that. You became invisible. And so this needing to please others is because it's always about everybody else. Mm-hmm. So you kind of like lost yourself in the process. So that's why you're always wanting to see other people happy. You may also not want to deal with confrontation. Mm-hmm. So that's another reason why you might always say yes, because you don't want to like upset, you don't want to rock the boat. Mm-hmm. You also may be an empath. I find a lot of people that have codependency traits also are empaths, meaning sensitive to other people. And you almost can like read other people. You're really intuitive to other people. Mm-hmm. And that's why, I'm an empath, which makes me I shouldn't say I'm a great therapist, but it makes me good.
Own it.
Girl. Yeah. And so what it is that, you're so in tune to other people and it's almost uncomfortable. And so that's partly probably why you care more about how other people feel than sometimes you care about yourself. But, of course, by doing that, then you're not taking care of Jen.
Yeah.
That absolutely 1,000% is Jennifer. And she's got these spidey senses and it's friggin' weird. I thought she was a witch or something when I first met her. But it's like she can sense and feel, and she could be like, Tim, this person has bad energy.
This is happening with that person. I can see
it's. But I also see too how I'm glad she's doing this fast right now and focusing on herself, and she takes her walks every day for her, and it's all a balancing act though. And the good thing is, we have the tools, we have the foundation, we know how to ask for help, and a lot of people don't know how to, or they're not cognizant of the signs that you're talking about.
Well, I mean, I've had great influences like Sherry in my life where I literally do not want to have a codependent relationship with my husband. And we're on lockdown together, we work together, we live together, we're doing COVID together, so we have to be very adamant about our ways, our structures, our alone time, and things like that, just to have somewhat of a balance in what's going on in this new world.
But a lot of the people out there don't, and keep going through these.
Yeah,
Sherry, I want to hear some more.
I just want to interject a little bit. What's really interesting about what you said is, even though we're empaths, we know the truth, we don't listen to the truth. That's what is the craziest thing about one of the signs and symptoms, is that we know, this person is bad, I shouldn't marry that person, which is what I talk about in my book, Love Smash.
Don't say that.
I mean, let me just tell you, I gotta just share really fast. One of my marriages, I've had multiple marriages, and I share that so that I can reduce the stigma around it. But in my book, Love Smash, I was about to get married, I'm about to go down the aisle, and these big doors open up, and all of a sudden the pedestals of flowers drop on my dress.
Oh no.
And I'm like, that's a sign. But I had signs way before that, and that's the truth. So that's what's really interesting, is why don't we listen to ourselves? Well,
man, I mean, that was in one of my relationships, I was told by everyone, get out, cut and run. My everybody, my parent, everyone, and I didn't do it, and now I'm paying the price for it. I really am, with custody and all this, but why do we do that? Why did I do that and not listen?
Well, I'll, you tell me why you did it, and then I can, talk about it a little bit. Why did you not listen to that inner voice?
Because I don't know. And it's not an excuse. When at 21 months, my 20-year-old son died from an overdose. And then here flukily, I have another child at, 48 years old. And I was fearful of my career and everything I was doing, that I'm not going to be able to take full custody. And it was all bullshit. I mean, I did everything for the wrong reasons. I should have cut and run right out of the gate.
Okay, well then you were in some kind of fear, and let's take the shame out of it, because there are reasons we do these things, and whatever your reasons were your reasons, Tim, and that was your shame, and your fear, and so that's why you did it. I mean, that's why I married people I shouldn't have married, or actually one of my the worst things I've done is gone back with people. That's been a big thing that we call it the boomerang effect. And I'll go back with someone. It's like, how many times
can I get a couple of your books, please?
Oh my God, I have to, like, how many times? I mean, it's crazy, but this is why I do what I do. I'm an old lady. I want people, young people, all people, to not feel ashamed that we do these things for a reason. It's how we were brought up. It's how we were raised. It's the narrative. It's the story that we're telling ourselves.
Well, you're before me, your last relationship, and you got out of it. And then you said you cried for 3
So he, like, in my head, he broke my heart. Like, it was a lot of deception. And so at that moment, as he was breaking up with me, I remember I just went, oh my God, learn the lesson, observe, absorb. And like everything he was saying, it was like slow motion. I remember the couch, even as I'm saying it, behind him, and the curtains, and then the door. And like, I was observing everything. And then he was like, this went a lot easier than I thought it would. And like, he's like, what do you have to say? And I just looked at him, like, it was like I just wanted to not go back to what I had kept doing in relationships. And I was like, we'll talk tomorrow. And like, I went upstairs and I said, you need to leave. And I cried and I went crazy, and I cried for 3.5 months. At 3.5 months, I wake up, I'm crying again. And I realized I wasn't crying over him. I never was crying over him. I was crying over me. I was crying because I lost my voice. And this is in 2018, in the beginning of 2018. I lost my voice. I made myself small so he could feel big. And that I refused to ever make myself small again, to make someone else feel big. And I just went, oh my gosh. And here I am speaking all across the country. And I mean, I'm everywhere, and I'm being very honest about where I'm at. And I just got on my knees and I went, God, remove this obsession. I have learned the lesson. Please help me get through this. And I dug deep into what was going on. And when I met Tim, I was like, hey. And so we started, getting like talking. I was like, when we got together, I said, unfortunately for you, it's going to be a lot harder in life because I've learned my lesson, certain things. Right. So I'm going to say no to a lot of things, and I'm not going to, and he was like, what? And then he realized, yeah, but fortunately for me,
girl, you go. And it's just about, staying in your power. It's not about being a quote bitch. It's just about being powerful, being the powerful woman that you are.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes I dim that light, but that's me dimming it, and so then I got to,
So here's one thing, Jennifer.
I was just going to say, that reminds me of Jen, is that we always feel like we have to be all or nothing. Like it's all black or white. It's like, well, I either have to be powerful or I have to be small. And it's like, how about the middle way? Like, what if I can love Tim and still be a really, love Tim and sometimes, I don't know, give in, or, sometimes not
compromise,
thank you, and still be powerful.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And I hope someone's hearing that right now, because it's okay to just be okay.
Well, one of the greatest things Jennifer did in our relationship was get me connected with a phenomenal therapist. Then out of the blue, she springs on me. This Saturday, we're doing couples therapy. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Well, the night before, we're laying in bed and I looked at her and I said, Jen, can you explain something to me? She said, yeah. I said, our relationship is amazing and wonderful. Why are we doing couples therapy? What was your answer?
I said, because I love you and I love us. And I want we've both not been in great, healthy relationships. And I want us to be able to be in the best relationship for us possible. And I want us to be able to communicate on that level. And sometimes you need a third party to like guide and direct you on that. And so we've done like 2 sessions.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I have a great book for you guys. It's called Your Brain on Love. Of course, you want to buy my book, Love Smack, but that is not about
Yes.
couples there. But if you want a couples book together, The Brain on Love by Stan Tatkin, I recommend it to everyone. It's a great, great book. You guys can listen to it on Audible together. I swear to God, it's a game changer.
Well, and those are the things too. People don't realize there's some really good books out there, and we'll talk in a little bit about the ones you wrote and what's out there. But I can remember running support groups, right? The parents and the person struggling with addiction, and the parents, well, my kid should be on step 4. And I asked them, I said, how many of you have actually read the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous? One did. I said, how many of you have read Codependency No More? And educating these people, take the time to invest in yourself.
And just, I got to go back a little bit on what we were talking about, relationships and couple therapy and what we were doing. I come from a broken family. My parents were separated and then divorced. And then there's, you've been in a couple marriages. So I was like, I think it's important for us to deal with the traumas behind of whatever it is that we've dealt with together in in couples therapy. So it's not like we're going to get in a heated discussion, but like, how does trauma fit in codependency?
Oh, that's so interesting. Well, I can get into that, but you guys you've just brought up so many things that I'm thinking of, but if you want, I'll go right into that trauma, but
whatever you want, just whatever.
The bottom line is this, like I said earlier, if you grow up and you're in a family where there's abuse and there's neglect and there's alcoholism and there's addiction or divorce and all of those things, you're not going to get the attention you need. You're not going to get what you need. You're not going to get, in my case, the bonding, the nurturing. So of course, you're not going to have a sense of self. And that's what really codependency is. It's a lost self. But if you were, grew up in a family where you did receive love and you did receive the bonding and you did receive the attention and the validation and the acknowledgement, then you're going to grow up and have a healthy self. So, earlier, you were talking about, picking who you picked, and then you were going around the world, going around the country, and you were speaking, and look at me, I'm in this terrible relationship. It reminded me of when Celebrity Rehab was going out, and I was talking about my first book. And I'm talking about my first book about addiction and recovery and the law of attraction. And I'm in a marriage with somebody that can't get sober. And I felt like such a fraud, and an imposter. But I want people to know we're not imposters. We're just human and we're having experiences. And listen, I ran the family program at one of the Malibu treatment centers that no longer exists, Promises, way before I wrote my book, way before Celebrity Rehab, and way before my alcoholic husband relapsed. So I didn't even know what I was doing. So sometimes we have to experience a severe breakup. We have to experience someone who's relapsed in order to finally, reach our bottom. And, I'm kind of going all over the place, but, just like an addict or alcoholic reaches their bottom, I reached a bottom. I had, a spiritual, mental, and I guess physical bottom. I started losing my hair. I had kidney stones, staph infection. I was having high anxiety, PTSD, all because I was trying to help this alcoholic. So I guess I'm going around in circles, but I want people, the biggest thing I want is people not to be ashamed of where they are. And if you grew up in trauma, or you ended up in a relationship that had a lot of trauma in it, or if you've made multiple mistakes, in different relationships, and there you are again, don't beat yourself up. I'm single again. Here I am. I just broke up with someone. And this brings me to another thing I wanted to say about when you two were talking about working on your couple issues. There's 3 things that are unacceptable: verbal, physical abuse, addiction that's not with someone that isn't in recovery, and oh God, what's the third one? Oh, cheating. Like, those are deal breakers. You're not going to get help in therapy for those 3 things. I'm sorry. That's how I feel. I'm very clear about that. And the person that I was dating started to have some verbally abusive traits that I just, couldn't tolerate. So if you're going to start a couples therapy program, just make sure those 3 things are in order.
Yeah.
I think what really helps someone like you and us is not only do you have the educational and the schooling, you have the life experiences.
Yeah.
And just the way you're explaining this, I mean, it's like I could listen to you all day long because you have the subject matter expertise from the educational side, but the life experiences, and you know how to convey that to the person or people you're trying to help through psychotherapy and therapy in general.
Thank you, Tim. It's hard because when I talk about, my quote, multiple relationships, I wonder, are people judging me? Do people like that I'm transparent? Do they say, well, God, if she can't get her, SHIT together, how can she help me? And I guess, what I'm hearing you say is maybe being transparent is a positive thing, because then you realize, oh my God, she's been there. She understands it. And I really appreciate that, Tim.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that, it's interesting because I think about, I feel that there's not a soul out there that's listening, a person that's has been in a relationship or is in a relationship that has experienced PTSD from prior, relationships, or like they're kind of like questioning and going, okay, is this going to happen like it did before? And one of the things I work through and I'm constantly coherent about is Tim is not my father. Tim is not my ex. Tim is not my XXX, you know what I mean? Like he is his own person. So like, are my patterns different? And that you talk about your book, The Law of Attraction, like, what are you attracting? Why are you feeling you're attracting that? And I think that at times there's been, in the beginning of our relationship, it was kind of like, you kind of tiptoed going, is she going to be like, somebody in your past? And then you realize like, oh, okay, that's not happening. So people need to be conscious of that, I feel.
Well, I leveled up with you. I mean, and I just go from average Joe to marrying a supermodel actress, badass in recovery. But I was intimidated at first just because when's the shoe gonna drop? And it didn't. And the crazy thing, it's not crazy. Jennifer's world revolves around me. The way she takes care of me, she cooks, she cleans, just everything. And I mean, I've never truly had that. I have never had a relationship to where, I mean, I'm your world and it's pretty badass. And sometimes they take full advantage of it, and I'll admit it.
Well, I think you probably take care of each other.
We do.
I mean, truly. I mean, you're each other's best friends and you're each other's best champions. And, again, there's no abuse. You both are doing the work. I mean, you both sound to me incredibly healthy. And you're willing to just keep going on this journey. It didn't stop with the 12 steps. Now you're doing the individual work and you're doing the couples work. And so many, unfortunately, people in the 12-step program don't continue on. And I'm not judging anybody. I just think that if there's issues that cannot be addressed in the 12 steps, because the 12 steps are really, same with the sponsor, they're only supposed to go through the 12 steps with you. They're not supposed to be your therapist. They're not.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And many think that they are, unfortunately. And again, nothing against the 12 steps. It is the foundation for me, Al-Anon. And I say it because I'm saying it, so I don't have to be anonymous. And I think it's the greatest thing ever, but then we have to kind of go beyond that. And that's where, like you said, professionals come in.
I love that you were talking about, you're single now and that you are breaking the stigma of relationships. And like, for me, I feel that I was on the opposite. Like I was single into my 40s, right? So I'm in my 40s now, and now I'm married finally. Like all my friends, everyone, I remember at first, like when all my friends in their early 20s got married, and then my other friends in their 30s got married, and everyone's having kids. And I'm like, okay. And then I was like, well, I want to live my life and, struggling with addiction. And finally I got sober, and like, I chose the option. I wasn't going to just get married to get married. Like that was my thing. But like now I say to people, I understand being single. Like I was single well into my, like, it wasn't like I got married,
What do you say about the second half of your life?
Like I chose in 2018, and when I got on my knees that day and I said, God, I've learned the lesson, help me through this. I said, I choose to live the second half of my life happy, because I didn't have happy, even though I can look back now and see happy moments in my life, but I really didn't fully understand happy, and I'm learning it right now. And so it's been a process, so I think that on both ends, it's okay. And we're breaking the stigma. Like, you can be single or you can be in a relationship.
True. I mean, there's, I think it's Diana Ross's daughter. She's a famous actress.
Tracy, yeah.
What is her name?
Tracy Ross.
Yeah, she does a video on this whole thing, and I can't think of the name of it. I don't have the link or whatever, but it's a video on just how hard it is to be a woman in your, your 40s or 30s. Like, why aren't you married? How come you don't have children? And then when you get married, are you going to have children? So it's, you're right. It's both sides of the spectrum. I'm judged because I was married many times. I'm couple of decades older than you, Jenn. And when I was growing up, it was all about being married, even though career was kind of, there was the feminist movement, and career was like fine as long as you're married. And so I felt this pressure. And then when my first husband left me and I was only, in my early 20s as a single mother, I was like, oh God, I didn't sign up for this. And so I had to find husband number 2. So I talk about it again in my book, Love Smacked. And it's the same judgment. It's like, oh, she's been married multiple times. Oh, she's never been married and she's in her 30s and 40s. What is wrong? It's like, when are we going to stop judging people like that from, the outside in, right? Let's just start looking at people from the inside out.
Exactly.
Well, I want to say that because I think with technology today, with cell phones, with computers, with Facebook, with Instagram, people are more judgmental, because they can type something on a keyboard and shoot it out there because they're not saying it to your face.
And they can hide behind it.
And they can hide behind the keyboard. But unfortunately, I think
started in that. That's, you mean like, finish your statement.
Yeah, I just think today people are more judgmental because it's easier to be instead of getting to know people and make a educated. I people judge me all the time, and spend a day with me, get to know me, and see who I am and how I operate.
Try dating on an app and talk about crazy making.
Yeah.
I don't know if the two of you have ever done that, but I mean, I have 2 horror stories that happened recently. It was like, one was like, he picked me and then I wrote him back, and then the next day wrote, you couldn't make this stuff up. He goes, my girlfriend broke up with me yesterday, but she took me back today.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
No longer, interested. And then another one goes, I've given it a lot of thought, and I don't think you're for me. And I never even spoke to the guy.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, there's some
batshit crazy people out there. I mean, God bless them.
Oh my God, but they ghost you or they do these crazy things because you're right. You're so right on, Tim. They don't have to like face you. And, and in the old days, if you were fixed up with someone, you would never do that because you'd want to look good for the person that fixed you up. But nowadays, it's like, I can be an ASS hole because nobody's going to know, only you, and who cares? So, and I bring this up because let's date with integrity, guys.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's a whole book in itself, because like I've been in long-term relationships, like 4 years, 3 years, 2. The last one was 5 years prior to in 2018 where it ended. And I literally, everyone's like, oh my God, are you going to date now? Are you going to like, get your, how Stella got your group? And I was like, how do you date? Like, I didn't even know and I'm like, people are texting like, because, I mean, like 5 years is it's a marriage, and prior to that was, 4 years or whatever. So, and being a woman, right. And the stigma that comes along with, you're a woman, you're married, you're not married, you don't have kids, you have kids, like how dare you get in another relationship, or how dare you not have kids, and, being Latin and being the only one in my family that hasn't been married, it's like a whole thing. And I remember when we started talking for work, I said, it's so different for us women, like to be respected, B, like to be taken seriously. If he were to say, I don't like that, it's okay. But if I said, I don't like that, I'm a bitch or I'm difficult, because I'm a woman.
Well, it's when I met Jennifer, when we finally met, we were meeting for business. I was in the middle of my second divorce. I was meeting her for business. And when I met her, and it was love at first sight. And 6 months later, we were engaged. And 6 months after that, we were married.
I was pushing him away. Right. I was like, no.
I can remember her saying, if you want to slow things down and go sow your oats. Go sow your oats.
Go do the dude thing,
I wasn't looking for this, but it's in front of me now.
Well, I think you both were probably the healthiest you'd ever been, and then you just and then you weren't looking,
Right.
and then you attracted each other. And when you feel good about yourself, I mean, I can't say I don't feel good about myself, but I feel so good about myself that I know when I see a red flag, I'm gonna run the other way. And
Absolutely.
unfortunately, we don't see red flags sometimes. For a while. This last relationship was a year and a half before I saw these really big red flags. So, and again, I want people not to beat themselves up. You will, you get it when you get it, whether it's recovery, whether it's a cross addiction, like now you realize, oh God, I am codependent. Now what? Everything you've done in your life counts for something. Don't ever take it all the lessons you've learned, everything you've done, your mistakes, it all counts for something.
It really does. And I want to ask you, like, how does codependency play with like fear thoughts or to fear thoughts? Like, does that do that? Like,
yeah, well, I think like any addiction, fear is always around the corner, right? So if you're always afraid of being alone, you're always afraid you're never going to find anyone, you're afraid there aren't enough, men out there, women out there, or if you're codependent and let's say an addict in your life that you're afraid they're never going to get sober. So then you worry always about that, or you're living in the future, you're living in the present, all these things are living in fear, which generally brings more fear. That's kind of how the law of attraction works. You bring back to you what you put out there. And if you're thinking fear thoughts, you're going to bring more fear. So live in gratitude, live in the moment, live in the present, and allow and know someone is on their way. If it, in this case, we're talking about relationships. I know I'm going to find someone amazing one day. Don't know when, don't know how, but I believe it. I believe because I've made room for it. If you stay in something, because you're afraid to be alone or you're afraid you'll never find anybody, then you're just going to keep getting that. People are afraid of what they don't know. People are always afraid of the unknown, but unknown is where possibilities exist. If you stay in that bad relationship, you know exactly what you're going to get. If you let that relationship go, everything great can come your way.
Amen. It's interesting how many people over the years I've spoke to and said, you know what, I'm not a clinician. I have no clinical background, but I suggest you should probably talk to a therapist. And how many people are afraid to talk to a therapist? But once they talk to them, I'm getting, Tim, thank you so much. This was the greatest thing ever. I don't know why people are
mainly
so fearful.
Men, I feel like are more afraid. Like, it's like, I can't do that. There's no way I can show my feelings. Like, and
hard to believe, right? In 2021, that men still can't cry. I mean, it's kind of crazy. It's kind of unbelievable, actually. But I think when we talk about men in recovery, and then we go back to the trauma piece, they were raised, you don't cry, you have it.
Suck it up.
Suck it up, right? And
I feel like that, like, we need to have you, and not that I'm trying to even get close to ending the show, but I feel like we need to have you on the show again to talk about how you work with men growing up in recovery, or like becoming men in recovery, because you get sober and like you're still stuck, or women, how you help women become women in recovery, because there's a lot of growing up we need to do.
Sherry, you said something very powerful earlier. People have this misconception that I got sober, I worked the 12 steps or celebrate recovery or whatever pathway, and I'm good to go. There is so much more. That just gives you the foundation for trying to stay sober. You need the outside therapy. You need mentors. You need spiritual. There's so many more tools to be brought into the toolbox. And Jennifer has laid a ton of those. Yes, the spiritual foundation, but there is so much more. But you're only going to get out of it what you're willing to ask for the help with. It's
and there's really no excuse, because we're living in such great times. I mean, think about Instagram, how many people post about recovery and have these different types of programs. Like, if the 12 steps isn't for you, then there might be something else, or podcasts.
Right. I'm
going to be starting a podcast called The Love Fix on codependency and toxic relationships and dating. But look, we have the Tim and Jenn show. I mean, there's so many alternative, and I'm not saying don't go to the 12 steps and just listen to podcasts, but you know what I tell my clients? If you're not ready to go to a 12-step program, or you're just not sure, listen to some podcasts.
Yeah.
And I'm going to add you guys to the list. I usually recommend these other ones that are some women in recovery that have excellent podcasts, but I'm going to recommend you guys because you are like the couples podcast in recovery.
Right? We have the he said, she said version of things. And, I think what happens too is for codependents and about how we've been talking about relationships. And I love that it ended up being about this right now. But, a lot of times I realized, like, did I date I was asked this question, like probably in like year 7 or 8 of my recovery. And they're like, are you dating your mom or dad? And I'm like, what? That's gross. And I was like, whoa, wait, hold on. And like for so long in my life, I was dating one or the other in my head, not on a sexual level. I'm just saying we pick up what we are around. Like that's all we know, right? So I didn't want to marry my mom or dad, so
then she found me.
I found you, and like, but it's finding it, and it's the greatest thing that I have.
Did you ever see that movie with Michelle Pfeiffer and Bruce Willis? They're in bed and they have like their parents in a bubble. So basically it's like the couple, and then they have his parents in a bubble and her parents in a bubble.
No.
Right? No. And basically that's exactly right, Jen. We marry, what we know. And usually it's our parents. And again, it's not in a sexual way, but we, that's just human nature. But the problem is when we do that and then we pick someone that isn't the right partner, we are going to bang our heads to make it work, because if we can make that work, then we can finally heal our childhood wounds.
Bingo.
Bingo. Is it.
That's
that is a mic drop moment right there, because we just don't know until we know, and we don't know what we don't know. We don't know. Right. It's about uncovering, discovering, and discarding. Really, it is. And it's having someone like you talk about this. I feel like we could bring you on the show for quite a few more times for different things.
My pleasure. Anything I can do to support and bring, this kind of hope. That's all, hope. Lots of
your books.
So you have some books out there. How can people find your books, find you, follow you? Give us all the plugs you can. This is your time to plug yourself.
Thank you guys for giving me this opportunity. So I have the book Love Smacked, which is on Amazon about love addiction and codependency. And then I have my book Infinite Recovery, which takes the law of attraction and applies it to addiction recovery. So there's those 2 books. And then I know you're going to put some stuff in the show notes. I have a free quiz. I'm not sure which quiz I sent you. I think it's the codependency quiz. But if you take the quiz and you look at your show notes, you'll get a free ebook called The Truth About Codependency. So you can see, am I a codependent? And then get the free ebook. And then I have a membership site called Wake Up Recovery for Codependents and Toxic Relationships. I call it Wake Up Recovery because to me, when I let go of my alcoholic ex-husband, it was a waking up process, just like most recovery, whatever that recovery is. So it's called Wake Up Recovery. And I have a $1 trial where you can check it out for a week, see if you like it. And it's for anybody struggling with love addiction, codependency, or a toxic relationship, a hard breakup. Maybe there was someone who's a narcissist. And, even it's for people that are in recovery. I started the program for people in recovery. So it really speaks to recovery, love addiction, and toxic relationships and codependency.
Is that the website? What website do they go to find it?
Well, I gave it to you, Tim. I don't have it in front of me. I can look it up if you want.
You did probably give it to me, and I will look it up. Jenn, talk.
And then this week, aren't you doing a seminar?
Well, I actually do have, is this coming out this week? Okay, if it's coming out this week, I will send you some information. I'm doing a free webinar on how to say no without feeling guilty. Ooh. So if you guys would be so kind as to put it in your show notes, I'll send you all the links.
Okay, great.
That'll be perfect. We'll add everything into the show notes. Are you on Instagram? Are you on Facebook? I am.
It's called Codependency Curious.
There you go. I like that.
And on Twitter?
Twitter under Sherry Gaba.
Okay. SHERRYGABA.
And I said your last name wrong. Well, normally I say,
okay, no problem.
I'm so sorry.
Well, I called you
Jimenez
instead of Jimenez.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Sherry, I spelled her name wrong so many times, Jenny.
That's okay. And if I recall, you did my interview at Recovery Today magazine too.
And then you gave me a cover.
Yes.
I did. That was fun. It's a great magazine for sure. I'm not really affiliated right now, but awesome magazine.
We honestly, from the bottom of our hearts, want you back. I want you back. I was already writing notes for the next shows, like to do a couple different things. I mean, you are so informative. You have such passion. You are so amazing. And I love you.
You're so, I love you too, Jen, and I love you, Tim.
Thank you, Sherry. We want to
love
thank you for coming on the Tim and Jen show. And remember, if you have people out there that are listening that are struggling, go to our website, dopetohope.com. Give us a call at 844-611-HOPE, 844-611-4673.
Or reach out to Sherry.
Reach out to
Gaba,
Sherry,
we will
please.
leave the links on. And thank you, Lux Media. We love you guys. Thank you for this opportunity.
Absolutely. Until next week, this is Tim Ryan, Jennifer Jimenez signing off from the Tim and Jen show. Have an amazing day.
Thanks, you guys.
We want to talk to you about Clean Cause, better caffeine. What's in the can? Our organic, sparkling Herba Mate is a premium pick-me-up that won't let you down. Every can of Clean Cause contains 160 milligrams of better caffeine, and each sip supports recovery from alcohol and drug addiction. 50% of the profits go to assist people into sober living. Check out cleancause.com.
At Rosecrans, it's more than a wish. Hope has power. As the proven behavioral health leader in the Midwest, no other program offers our depth of experience and hope here at Rosecrans. And when someone you love struggles with substance abuse and mental illness, hope plays an important part in recovery. Life's got bigger plans for you. We should know. We're the most trusted name in treatment and the best choice for those who dare to hope. Visit us at rosecrans.org. Life's waiting.
Seaside Palm Beach is an executive luxury addiction treatment center located in Palm Beach, Florida. Our private clients come from all over the world, including business executives, professional athletes, celebrities, and more. Seaside Palm Beach offers first-class amenities and high-end accommodations, including a gourmet culinary experience, ocean views, pet-friendly facilities, and access to cell phones and laptops during your stay. If you or a loved one are struggling with addiction, please call us at 877-959-5053. Again, that number is 877-959-5053.
Now, glutathione is a big word, but it's the body's own master antioxidant. So it's a scavenger for free radicals, for bacteria, and what's relevant now, viruses. This is new to the marketplace. There's no other product on the market that has the ingredient NACET.
And basically NACET increases the production of that glutathione that is in our body already to strengthen and enhance our immune system and keep it strong. Elevated sense of well-being. Supports muscle strength and endurance. Cognitive function. Powerful liver support. Energy, helps blood sugar regulation, superior bioavailability of key ingredients.
One of your best defenses against COVID is a strong immune system. Taking GSH Plus as a daily supplement does all that. And now we have the product out on the marketplace.